everybody and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be talking about the gov.uk article, and it's called 62 million to help discharge people with a learning disability or autism back into the community. It's from the Department of Health and Social Care website. It was updated online yesterday, the 16th of July, and it was also by the Right Honourable Matt Hancock MP and the Right Honourable Helen Whatley MP, and it says funding will be given to local councils to accelerate the discharge of patients with learning disabilities or autism or both from mental health hospitals in the community. The funding can be spent on costs associated with the discharge, including establishing community teams, funding accommodation and staff training. A new independent oversight panel has been set up to improve care and support for inpatients with learning disabilities or autism. The Health and Social Care Secretary Matt Hancock has called for a renewed focus to ensure people with learning disabilities or autism are discharged promptly from hospital back into the community. Additionally, last year the Health and Social Care Secretary and Baroness Hollands to oversee the independent case reviews for people with learning disability and or autism who were identified as being in long-term segregation. The reviews have been made recommendations in each case to support moving people to less restricted settings as quickly as possible. Baroness Hollands has now been appointed an oversight panel, which will examine findings from these reviews and develop recommendations to the government. Health and Social Care Secretary Matt has said, far too many people with learning disabilities and autistic people remain in hospital when they could receive better support in their communities close to their home and loved ones. So I am delighted that this new funding will help the local authority to support changes into the community more quickly for people with learning disabilities and or autism. The Minister for Care, Helen Whatley, has said people with a learning disability and autistic people should have the best possible care, and I am determined to put the health inequalities they too often face. Few of us would choose to remain in a hospital bed when we could be receiving care better in our own communities. The funding will speed up discharge from hospital wards, making a real difference to people's lives. I'd like to thank Baroness Hollands for her important work overseeing independent case reviews for those in long-term segregation and look forward to her recommendations. And then it goes on to say that Baroness Hollands named a community discharge fund. The funding will help to move people with learning disabilities and autistic people into more appropriate care, either into less restricted settings or back into community where they're appropriate. The fund, which will be split over 3 years, will give local authorities additional money to remove some of the obstacles to discharging patients. The new funding will help to double run costs such as establishing community teams, funding accommodation and staff training. Local authorities and transforming care partnerships will be able to use the new funding in the most appropriate measures for their area. The funding is on top of a total of a £3.7 billion given to councils to support the response to the coronavirus pandemic. This is a significant package of support which responds to the pressures of councils have told us that they're already facing. The oversight panel will make recommendations to transform the care and treatment of people with a learning disability and or autism and prevent unnecessary admissions and the use of restrictive practices in future. Baroness Hollands has said, since November I have been reviewing all of these instances when people with learning disabilities and autistic people have been detained in long-term segregation. I have now appointed an oversight panel to assist me in understanding what I have found out and in making urgent recommendations to the government. Our aim is to prevent the use of seclusion and restraint within the future. Supporting people to live well in their own homes would be the best outcome. In some circumstances, people's mental health may require a short admission for specialist assessment and development of an evidence-based treatment plan, but the majority could and should be able to receive expert mental health treatment support within local communities. The independent reviews have made recommendations to improve individual cases and outline steps to move individuals to less restricted settings and into discharge, which will now be considered by the oversight panel. The panel held its first meeting on the 29th of June and will continue to meet throughout the summer to develop its findings and recommendations. It is made up of clinical, psychological and commissioning experts, as well as those with a lived experience, including family members and advocates. Councillor Paulette Hamilton, Vice Chair of the Local Government Association Community Wellbeing Board, has said, councils want to do all they can to support those with learning disability and or autism to be returned and be supported in their local community. The funding will help for councils to ensure the discharge process is speeded up and safe following the person throughout their treatment. We look forward to seeing as many people return to their homes and communities as is possible. Background information. So this says the funding announced in this March budget consists of 74 million over 3 years for the whole of the UK under the Barnett formula. Local authorities in England will receive 62 million over the 3 years, 20 million in 2021, 21 million in 2021 to 2022, and 21 million in 2022 to 2023. Funding will be allocated to a nominated local authority in each Transforming Care partnership based on a forecast need. Areas with the highest number of autistic people or those with learning disabled currently in inpatient settings will receive the most funding. However, all local areas will receive a share of the funding. Nearly 70 independent case reviews have so far been completed. The oversight panel, chaired by Baroness Hollins, is examining the analysed findings from the independent reviews to develop its recommendations. In adherence with the data protection policy, panel members do not have access to identifying information about individuals and will not intervene within individual cases. So as soon as I find out any more about this, I think it's a really excellent idea. I think it's something that is going to really help the independence of people with learning disabilities and or autism return back to their local loved ones and local communities. I agree that also we shouldn't be kept in isolation. We shouldn't be kept in mental health hospitals, if at all, because it doesn't do us any good. It makes us more mentally unwell. It takes us away from our loved ones. It takes us away from our friends, our relationships, our set up bonds, our relationships with people who are on the outside, like our friends, social groups, online groups, and keeping us in mental health hospitals just deteriorates our health. It makes us worse than what we already were when we went in there, and half the time the mental health staff don't know how to treat autistic people. They have no idea about our triggers, our sensory overloads, our emotional meltdowns, our sensory triggers to being touched or given medications, because we're often sensitive to a lot of medications. We often have problems with sleeping, so again we can become very, very emotional, distressed. That can lead to violence towards carers, professionals, family, friends. So again, getting us back out into the community, back to our own homes or independent housing as soon as we are able to, as soon as it is safe. And I feel that this report is excellent. It really has detailed what they're planning to do government-wise as well as locally for each council. So I will link this down below. Please give this a like, comment, share and subscribe. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.